Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and...
Hello, Nova One.
So Raffaello Metatron is paying us a visit. In fact, what are you doing here?
I'm just travelling a little bit of a holiday here in London.
Cool, and what have you been seeing? What have you seen so far?
I've seen Trafalgar Square, Piccadilly Circus, the usual Buckingham Palace.
And enjoying our wonderful weather?
Oh my goodness, like literally. What's wrong with it? It's always raining.
So it's not always raining, I promise you, but yeah, it does rain probably more than it does in Sicily.
Oh yeah.
Have you tried any of the local pizzas?
No, I wouldn't dare.
No. We have good pizza in London, and you have had some good sausage and mash.
I did, yeah.
So come to England, eat sausages. So you did a class this evening, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you find it? What did you do?
It was very, very interesting. We did sabre fencing and
sabre. This is the Italian for sabre.
We do use our hands a lot, as you imagine. It was very, very interesting. My first time ever to do HEMA. I have been trained in Japanese martial arts, and I have already seen quite a lot of difference. It's just one class.
Yeah. So have you done any modern fencing before?
I've done some Olympic fencing. Spada,
okay. Yeah. Epee. Yeah. So that's so in Italy it's spada. Epee. We call it in England, but that just means French, sword. Yeah. But that's for those of you who don't know, that's the triangular section, thrusting sword, full body target.
Yes.
First person to touch scores the point. So did you do much of that?
Just a few months, to be honest, not very much.
Okay.
I got bored quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got bored quickly.
And you notice the footwork for that is very similar to sabre?
Yeah, the footwork, and also I liked how you were teaching like the riposte situation of parry and riposte and all that. And it's very different. It's very
so I mean that's one of the big differences for someone who's coming from modern fencing into historical fencing, is we try to put a big emphasis on the fact that when you hit someone, they might try and hit you back afterwards.
Yeah.
Now, not to say that all historical systems say that you're allowed to do that in fencing. Some of them said that you're not allowed to do an afterblow, but they had the mentality, they had the context of the fact that knowing that might happen. So even within sport fencing of the 19th century, they made a big thing about recovering to guard and covering yourself on the way back. Whereas if we look at Olympic fencing, then we see two people very often just charge at each other in a suicidal way. Especially in epee, because they're just trying to get the first hit in. So it's a very, very different mentality. How did you find using the sabre? I'll just grab a... There we go. Yeah. So this is the kind of sabres we're using. How did you find it? Did you find it tiring?
It was tiring because I think I'm not used to it. Like my muscles are not used to it. So particularly when we were repeating over and over the same thing again and again. Sometimes I need a few seconds to,
Yeah. So most people who come to the club are quite surprised by the fact that sabre is more physically demanding often, or people often find it more physically demanding than longsword. But longsword, you've got to remember, you've got two hands on the weapon, and the weapon itself is not really very much heavier than a sabre, but you've got twice as many hands on it. And of course, the sabre is held out at arm's length quite a lot. So it's quite tiring on the forearm, quite tiring on the deltoid muscles.
But one thing I liked about the full hilt, basket hilt, you call it, it does make you feel quite protected.
Yeah, so the Rawlings full basket hilt, like you say, it completely encloses your hand, which means that you can really obviously have the weapon out in front of you a lot of the time and know that your hand's pretty much safe.
And you were discussing during class that that's one of the main differences and one of the reasons why you keep your weapon forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so with a medieval sword, if we just grab, here we go, a medieval cross-hilted sword, you're not going to be wanting to stand with your hand out in front of you all the time, like Errol Flynn used to do in
sword, if you don't mind.
No, go for it. In Robin Hood movies. In fact, the style of fencing you see in those movies from the 30s and 40s was actually really sabre fencing, but they were just using a medieval sword. But with a medieval sword, you wouldn't really generally want to use it like that because there's not enough hand protection, quite simply. This is designed to be used with a shield, and in war with at least male gauntlets, and obviously later on with plate gauntlets. So very, very, very different kind of situation to using those weapons.
And I have a question, because during class you were talking about several ways to grip the weapon.
Yeah.
Like you said, like the hammer grip and the handshake.
Yeah, so generally speaking, you've got... they're throwing swords at us. So you've got the hammer fist grip, okay? Then you've got what we would call the handshake grip, which is kind of tilted slightly, but still with the thumb at the side. And then you've got what I would call the saber grip with the thumb up the back. And obviously that brings the blade more in line with the forearm, gives you a little bit more of a snappy response. But the hammer grip is probably the strongest grip. The thumb up grip you can only really do with swords that are relatively light for you. If it's a heavier sword, then you're really going to want to hold it in a hammer fist grip.
Do you have any sort of those grips with this? Can I do a handshake with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the medieval arming sword, obviously you could hold it in a hammer fist grip, you could hold it in a handshake grip, and the third, rather than the thumb up the back, which we don't really see, I won't say at all, Roland Wojcicka, who's people always criticise how I say his name, but that's how
not one of the languages I know.
Roland, let's call him Roland. So Roland does have something that looks a bit like this, but I'm not so sure whether that was done with these kind of swords. The equivalent to that in the medieval and Renaissance era is the finger over, okay? And that's what gives rise to the finger ring. So what it actually does is it gives you a similar advantage to the thumb up the back in that it brings the blade more in line with the forearm, which is better for using the point, and it gives you an extra point of leverage because your index finger can pull down on that guard, which of course is what leads ultimately to the side sword and rapier hilt, because you've got these finger rings there to protect the finger going over there.
And what's your opinion on the idea of gaining extra reach by holding the sword further down?
Well, so modern fencers do it. So in épée, very often people will slide the hand right the way down the bottom to gain reach. There are historical examples of that being done.
Okay.
Absolutely. And in terms of medieval, I'm not personally aware. I mean, I know some things like this are done with longsword. So if you imagine, in fact, I've got a longsword. If only I had a longsword. Yeah, well, I do. So we do occasionally see the front hand quite a way down from the cross like that, which may be for that reason. Yeah, it could be for that. We don't know. But equally I've spoken about this in the past, but Viking era swords I think are oriented towards the bottom of the grip like that, rather than towards the top of the grip like you get later on, I believe anyway. Some people may disagree.
Because it's interesting, because as you know, I was trained a bit in Kendo and a bit in Katori Shintoryu. And I noticed that, of course, I'm no way an expert like you are for HEMA, but I noticed that the way you grip the sword is different. And sometimes in Kendo, you have one thing which is called toraguchi, I don't know if you can see that, but it's like making a V shape.
Oh yeah.
And holding it like this, you don't do that.
And lining.
You don't do that with Kenjutsu. You have more of a hammer grip.
Ah, right,
so,
okay.
Depending on the style, it differs.
Well, so I've done a little bit of Kendo, and I have friends who've done quite a lot of Kenjutsu, and something I've noticed is quite a different emphasis on how you cut.
Oh yeah.
Because obviously in Kendo, it has become its own stick fighting sport for the large part. Although it is swordsmanship, but it has specialised in one particular way. So you often get this quite almost in longsword, what we call a Scheitelhau, or in German longsword anyway, quite almost like fly fishing way of cutting. Whereas in Kenjutsu it seems to be more about slicing more. But I'm sure that you do get these cuts in Kenjutsu as well, but there's less emphasis on them, I think.
Yeah, and also it's interesting because, again, as you were saying, it depends what you want to do. Like, for example, in Kendo, you want to score a point. And of course you have to do it in the proper way, you have to scream. What do you think of that, by the way? Exactly.
Well, it's really, it's very interesting.
You don't have something like that in HEMA, do you? You don't say head.
No. Although it could be fun to experiment with that, but I kind of feel it's almost like taunting the other person. Actually, it's kind of like, I'm going to hit you in the head. Boom! I hit you in the head. I can see the logic of it, because what it's doing is it's rewarding a deliberate action rather than rewarding accidental things that happen to happen. So I can understand that. It's a bit like the right of way or priority rule in foil fencing, where the person who launches the attack has the priority until the other person has defended it, because that means the other person can't just kind of randomly go and if they score a hit, they score a point. So again, it's one of these things, it's artificial, but it's there to try and improve swordsmanship skill. So I don't think it's bad, but it can lead to quite artificial ways of training, I think.
And also maybe artificial muscle memory, which in a real duel wouldn't serve you, right?
Maybe,
even if accidentally you poke him in the throat, you still won.
Yeah, absolutely,
I mean.
And also, you know, Kendo's got this weird thing. You've only got one thrust.
Oh yeah, they used to have the munet. They used to have this. They removed it and went back to only Tsuki here, because otherwise too many people who fought in Jodan stopped using it, and so they were mostly going to Chudan only.
Right.
And that's why they thought it was more interesting seeing also Jodan fighters. And then that's what I read anyways. So they removed it, the Tsuki to the munet.
I mean, it's also in Kendo you keep 1 foot forward, and
maybe with Jodan you keep the left, and in Chudan you keep the right. If I remember right.
Right.
And it's interesting how some Japanese, when they go into Jodan, they say a phrase in Japanese which is gobure, and it means I'm being literally rude. I'm being rude. That's funny.
Anyway, it's really fascinating. It's always great to talk about different martial arts, different experiences. I hope that you'll get to experience some more HEMA.
Hopefully. I really liked it. I really, really liked it.
And it'd be great to see some HEMA happening in Sicily.
Oh, that would be nice. Unfortunately, now it's a bit, particularly where I'm from, it's too far from any club. But see, you should come and teach us.
Awesome. I'd love to. But thanks for visiting, and I'm sure we'll see some more of you soon. Cheers, folks, and noble ones.
Remember, the Metatron has spread its wings.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We have extra videos on Patreon, and you can follow us on Facebook.